Hello, and thank you for joining this session. I am Helen Scott, and I am still thrilled to have recently published Using Grounded Theory, How to Develop Theory for Managed Change. This session focuses more on how to apply the grounded theory you have developed to bring about managed change. My focus is practical. I'm interested in the doing of grounded theory. As part of my work, I mentor grounded theorists and run seminars and workshops on planning and generating a grounded theory. Sarah is a combination of some of my mentees and workshop attendees. Sarah is interested in corporate responsibility and organisational culture and is studying the idea of sufficiency in the field of fast fashion. She is planning to use documentary data and lightly structured interviews. She will be researching from a social constructionist perspective. I asked her what she wants from her study, and she told me that she wants to use her theory to make a difference. She wants a practical application. This tells me that Sarah needs to develop a full, conceptually integrated grounded theory. I explained to Sarah that grounded theory looks at patterns of behaviour, including reasoning, and that underpinning grounded theory is the assumption that any one population will have a shared issue or concern that is important to them, and that energy coalesces around that issue as people engage in behaviours to resolve or process it. This image shows neighbours engaging with their shared concern of rising water levels as they talk and type. In looking for patterns of behaviour, grounded theory seeks to understand what people do about an issue and what varies what people do. You will see from the context page that chapters 3, 4 and 5 focus on collecting and analysing data, whilst chapter 6 explains how to achieve the conceptual integration that Sarah needs for her purpose. Conceptual integration means that we understand the relationships between the concepts we have created. If you follow the guidance in chapters 1 to 5, you will be able to develop concepts to explain what is happening in your area of interest. If you were then to take your concepts and throw them on the table, this is what they would look like. If you then sorted them by colours, you would have themes, where only proximity connects the concepts. Writing up your concepts in this way would give you a conceptual description of what is happening in your area of interest. Now, this can be a very good outcome for master's students who have limited time for their dissertation. To realise the full opportunity of grounded theory, however, you need a theoretical code to bring shape and movement to your theory. By way of illustration, I now introduce the Rubik's Cube theoretical code. Here, the theoretical code organises the concept and brings shape and movement to the theory. If this, then that. Grounded theories come in many different sizes and shapes, and it is the theoretical code that you use that provides the shape. If you are new to grounded theory, the idea of theoretical codes can be a little daunting. For now then, it will be enough to be aware of what they can do for you and to familiarise yourself with different theoretical codes as you develop your theory and study the method. So what do theoretical codes do? Theoretical codes integrate concepts. And a conceptually integrated grounded theory can be applied to the same area of study and to similar areas. It will help you to predict what is likely to happen in the future if all stays the same. It will help you to understand what to change and what to protect. This book summarises Dr. Catherine Stoddart's thesis, Crisis Stewards Taking Action in Crisis. I was Dr. Stoddart's supervisor for her doctorate in business administration, and I am using her work to example how a grounded theory can be used to manage change. Dr. Stoddart's substantive area of interest was the COVID-19 pandemic, and her substantive population were public sector leaders in Australia. Dr. Stoddart spoke to 26 senior public sector leaders from Western Australia, Northern Territory, Queensland, Tasmania and the Commonwealth. These people held leadership roles with direct accountability to ministers within a government agency during the COVID-19 pandemic crisis. The leaders came from the Department of Health, from the Department of Community Services, the Department of the Chief Minister, and the Public Sector Commission. Dr. Stoddart conceptualised these leaders in time of pandemic as crisis stewards. Their shared concern was the burden they carry in relation to their role of protecting society and managing government resources in the best interest of citizens during a crisis. Crisis stewards process their concern by taking action to mitigate risks and to protect the public. This is what they do. They take action. The most important factors that vary what they do are the power to act and their capacity to act. The power to act arises from formal powers imbued by Acts of Parliament, legislation and statutory powers. Informal power is given in the way the public accepts, challenges or has expectations about how the government is managing the protection of citizens. A call to action arises from the public discourse, which occurs in debates, the media and stakeholder discussions. The organisational structure facilitates or hinders the application of the power to act. Dr. Stoddart identified 3 types of crisis stewards: thrivers, strivers, survivors, according to their personal characteristics and leadership attributes, that is, whether the crisis steward is more stoic or more fragile, more flexible or inflexible, has more of a directive or consultative style, and has experience of crisis. The culture of their organisation also influences their capacity to act. That is, whether the collective perspective drives more agile or more rigid responses. Thrivers thrive in both agile and rigid cultures. Strivers are supported by an agile culture, and survivors tend to operate within a rigid culture. In combination, the power to act and the capacity to act determine the extent of the impact of the actions a crisis steward takes. Thrivers can have a societal level impact, can shape public discourse and influence government decisions. Strivers can have a moderate impact beyond their own organisation and within the public sector. Survivors have a limited impact on their own organisation. When developing her theory, Dr. Stoddart used the theoretical code, the 6 C's of Concept A, to organise her concepts. That is, context, conditions, cause, consequence, covariance and contingent. Context has a particular meaning here. It means ambience, the feeling in the air between people, such as uncertainty, trust, awareness, belief. Conditions are something hard that you bump into, like the time design of a conference with start and stop points, or the rules driving guiding. We slow down for a 30 mile per hour speed limit, and we stop at a red traffic light. The 6 C's names the roles of and relationships between concepts. Dr. Stoddart used this theoretical code for her study, and this is her visualisation of it. Taking action is concept A and is the core category of the theory, which is the concept to which all other concepts relate. Taking action is triggered or caused by the substantial, persistent and unpredictable nature of the threat of the crisis. The consequence of taking action is the impact of that action at the societal, sector or organisational level. In this study, taking action is contingent on the role of crisis steward. Taking action takes place in a context of public anxiety expressed in the public discourse. And the power to action resides within the structural conditions of Acts of Parliament, legislation and statutory powers granted to crisis stewards, and in the informal permissions given by the context, the anxious, expectant and dominant social discourse. How crisis stewards take action co-varies with their capacity to act, which arises from the blend of personal characteristics and leadership attributes of the crisis steward and the organisational culture within which the crisis steward works. Dr. Stoddart also noticed a 7th C, combined force, which is the synergy arising from the individual crisis steward's capacity to act and their power to act. So in this study, the highly dependent variable, the controllable concept, is taking action. The access variables relate to the context, conditions, and covariances. The implications for managed change in relation to context are to develop clear and consistent messaging to shape public discourse and manage expectations, to frame decisions within government policy and anticipate public and political reactions. In relation to the power to act, the implications are to align legislative and policy frameworks to allow for rapid and legitimate action during crisis, to identify and activate, using all relevant parts of the current legislation or policy, to create an immediate effect. In relation to structure of the organisation in which the crisis steward works, an implication is to maintain awareness of long-term strategic goals and to explore synergies of both urgent and strategic stewardship to drive beneficial changes that align with broader objectives. The implications in relation to the capacity to act are to foster agile team cultures, to leverage technology for flexibility, to provide crisis-specific training, to build experience, and to support personal resilience. In this section, I have explained that theoretical codes conceptually integrate your grounded theory and point to what to change in order to improve the situation of your population. Now, I rather overpromised for this session, and this is a brief list of characteristics of the different adaptations of grounded theory in relation to enabling consent-based change. My recommendation is to choose the version of grounded theory that will deliver what you want. If you want to generate theory to seek it to improve the situation of your participants, this book, which explains the process of classic grounded theory, will show you how. It will also explain how it is that you can be an expert in your field, can have done a literature review, and be a social constructivist, as I am, and still use classic grounded theory. This is a yes you can and how you can book. Thank you for your time.